So my first reaction to getting approached to play Moon Knight in the MCU was to look up who the heck Moon Knight was, because I'd never heard of him before. And when I discovered, you know, that the comics that have been going back since 1975, his first appearance, I just found a very unusual, interesting character that is quite mutable. You know, he changes so much from artist to artist, from writer to writer. Who focuses whatever they decide is the most interesting aspect to focus on. So it felt like there was an opportunity for a lot of freedom in creating who Moon Knight was going to be for us.
You know, when I was first approached about this, the immediate thing that attracted me to playing the part was Oscar. To be honest, you know, I'm an actor first, and I like other actors. And feeling his passion and his enthusiasm for what he wanted to do with this, and I knew what a big dare it was. I mean, you know, it's like jumping off a high dive to play a new superhero in one of these giant shows, and to play such a complicated character. I liked the way that he was thinking and talking about it, and that made me want to do it. It's like joining a band.
When I found out that I got cast in this project, I had just done my chemistry read a few days earlier with Oscar and was waiting patiently. And my manager was like, "Have you heard anything?" And I was like, "No." And then she's like, "Well, I have." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "You got it." And we both cried. It was a lot of fun.
You know, I think what excited Marvel Studios about making Moon Knight was truly looking back at all the years and, quite honestly, decades of storytelling that Moon Knight had been a part of. If you look at his origin story, which we first find Moon Knight in Werewolf by Night in 1975. And after that, he was so popular, he bounced around in various Marvel IP for 5 years until 1980. He got his own comic. So you're looking at years and decades of storytelling. And by the way, as we all know, Marvel storytellers are at the top of their craft. So you're looking at decades of incredible stories. And really, it wasn't of like, what are we going to choose? It's like, what do we not choose? And so I think that was really when we looked at why do we tell Moon Knight now and how do we do it? We really just sifted through, 50 years, give or take, of incredible storytelling, picked the tones and the themes that were popular for so long. I mean, some of those tones and themes, as you can imagine, you look at the globe-trotting action-adventure aspects of the Moon Knight origin story. It's very Egyptology centric. On the page, Moon Knight, things go bump in the night, things are spookier. You're also dealing with a very complex character that has mental health issues. Mark Spector has dissociative identity disorder. You're also dealing with an IP tonally that's very humorous at times. So you look at all of those, and it wasn't one particular storyline that we thought, okay, it's now time to launch this particular storyline. It's time to launch this character with these incredible tones. And really what dovetailed into it nicely is obviously the Disney Plus platform. Having more than 2 hours, having 2 hours plus, whether it's 3 episodes, 4 episodes, 5 episodes, 6 episodes. This is such a complex character that we realized we needed that broader canvas that Disney Plus was able to afford us. And that's what was great about making it as a series and not just a movie.
The way that Aaron and I came on the project was that we had been trying to work with Marvel for years, right? And we were very luckily contacted with this idea of doing a Moon Knight show. And for us, just knowing that Moon Knight is defined by being an outsider, left of center, bold. There's no reason to do it if you're not going to be bold. I think that really excited us, and that it seemed like something that wouldn't be boxed in by genre, but it would just very much be its own thing.
That's it. Yeah. The tone of Moon Knight is exactly the same kind of thing as we've been doing for 5 independent feature films up till now. It's mind-bending. It's very character-focused. While the characters are dealing with a kind of otherworldly, fantastical, gigantic situation. And it doesn't really fit squarely into one genre. It kind of like floats into different ideas and different emotions and feelings. And it has a bunch of really complex characters. And so that's where we come from as independent filmmakers. And that's why we were so excited to be able to bring that same tone to Moon Knight.
I grew up in Egypt, and I got a glimpse of Marvel comic books. It was like a very hot commodity. It's very easy. Yeah, like you have to trade your soul to get one of them. But we only got the superhero, the big guys. So we got Batman, we got Superman. I know I'm talking about DC, and then we got Spider-Man, and we got Iron Man. Like those few. But I never heard of Moon Knight. If that's one of the questions you're gonna ask. And but I've been a Marvel fan, and I've been dreaming about a day like this. This is big to someone who just like grew up in a small city in Egypt, to be a part of probably the biggest story that ever was told in the world of cinema ever. So to be a part of that and bring something of your own is an honor, and I'm really happy about it. The moment I read the script of the show, me and Sarah Gohar, who's my wife, my producer, my partner in everything, we decided this is for us. This is the project that we should pursue. And we put together this 200-page pitch that showed our passion about the project. And in a way, we felt like, I know how to direct. We knew how to direct this all through. So we talked about location, tone, action, music, songs, visual themes, everything that you can imagine a director would do. And the moment we finished it, I told Sarah, if we didn't get that job, something's wrong with the world. And ironically, we got the job, and it wasn't a surprise for me, even though I was dancing on the beach when I got the job, me and her and the kids. But that pitch is the show. 2 years later, that pitch became the show, and sometimes I just like go back to it, and I'm just so happy that Marvel allowed me to bring everything, every crazy idea I had to the show is there now.
I did go back to the comics and research how he's been depicted. In fact, I got a bunch of different artwork from all the different comic runs, and had them pasted all around my trailer, just so every time I was sitting in there, I was always surrounded by those visuals that are just so beautiful and frightening. And so there was a lot of, really what I took from that is in a way, it was more the spirit of it as opposed to any plot points. And then for us, it was just about telling a real story that's about a journey through DID.
Well, that's the big trick about playing a villain, is you really, I don't think you can play a villain. You have to see them as I played a Saint Arthur Harrow, he was here to heal the world. Come with me, brothers and sisters, we can do it together. So if you think of him as a villain, then you start mustache twirling and being diabolical or crazy, and that's less interesting to me.
The reason I wanted to play Layla, well, I didn't actually get a lot of information about her prior to booking, or even after booking it. It took some time before the information started to trickle in, but was that mainly that she is Egyptian, and as an Egyptian person who also loves Marvel, that was an obvious yes. My approach to working with Steven and Mark, seeing as they're the same person but two different people, was really, it was working off of Oscar, because he was able to really understand the characters and almost become them. Then his whole physicality would change, and it wasn't actually a lot of work on my part. I would just work off of him. So it's really a testament to him.
Well, we consciously did not try to fit him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe or keep him out of it. We really looked at what was the best story to tell for Mark Spector and Stephen Grant and Moon Knight, as they are taking on their earthly duties to be this Egyptian god Khonshu's earthly avatar. And so that was really what we looked at when we started talking about the series, and what we wanted to bring to the table is what is the best character study to tell with Mark Spector and Stephen Grant.
Collaboration with Mohammed and everyone else involved with this project was so special in so many ways. One thing is to have Mohammed, to have him there to guide us when it comes to Egyptian culture. And not only that, this story that's clearly very personal to him on just a general human level. That was very special, and we became very close with Mohammed. Ethan Hawke was someone who we've been wanting to work with our entire careers, and had been so inspired by him as not just an actor, but as a filmmaker and as a novelist and all these things. Oscar Isaac is literally one of the best literally one of the best living actors right now in any medium. So obviously to get to work with him, amazing. But this project, something that is so special globally across the whole thing with all these people, is that everybody got to express themselves in some unique way, and it worked its way into the story we're telling, and almost like without ego.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, does this idea work? No, bat that one away. Wait, what'd you say, that last thing? That's brilliant. That's it. And to be able to do that with so many people who you admire as artists and have it run so smoothly, that's a very special experience to get to have.
I remember there was a moment when we were all of us together, all the collaborators were in the same room, and Oscar was trying to figure out the motivation behind a moment. And he said, here's what my brain would be thinking. He's thinking, am I this, am I that, all that? And everyone goes quiet trying to solve it for him. And Ethan goes, why isn't that the line? And it was brilliant. Everybody almost applauds. We're like, it's the line. That's the line.
What I love about Moon Knight is that it's very hard for you to capture the tone. The tone is actually a mix of a lot of things. The show has comedy, the show has drama, very serious drama. The show has action and horror. And one of the hardest challenges for me as a director is how to blend them all together and still feel coherent, and it doesn't feel like bits and pieces of genres. And I think I hope we succeeded doing that. But if you ask me what's the pitch, I would say this is Indiana Jones meets Fight Club. One of the most important things that drew me to the project was that it takes place in current Egypt, and it talks about Egyptology. And I've been very keen onto how to depict that and how to share that with the world. It was very important. Every Egyptian sees himself portrayed in the world of cinema, always sees himself, we call it the Orientalist way of seeing us, which means seeing us as exotic, and women are submissive, men are bad, and all the tropes that you would think of. So it was very important for me to have something completely different. I would tell you that my mom is the strongest person in my household. That's why Layla, the character, is a strong woman. All my movies, the women are actually stronger than men. My wife is the one who's running the family. So all those tropes, it was very important to break them. It was very important to show Cairo as Cairo, because a lot of times it's not even shot in Cairo. And a lot of times you see it when it's shot in Cairo, it's shot in a way that shows us as just like a desert city, like the pyramids and the desert, and shows us very primitive, even though if you just panned a little bit, Egypt is in the middle. The pyramids are in the middle of 20 million people, Cairo, one of the biggest cities in the world, so urban, a place that has skyscrapers, everything that you would imagine in an urban, huge city that doesn't sleep. All that was very important for me, and all that was in the pitch. And I would say that Moon Knight is a first step. And hopefully, if there's another iteration, or if I'm involved in anything Moon Knight more, I would actually push it even to do that more. Marvel was very supportive from the get-go. Layla herself wasn't completely Egyptian at the beginning, and they allowed us to make her Egyptian. They got us the expert. They got us Egyptologist. Anything Egyptian. I was like, Egypt, please. Anything Egyptian, I told them. they would push for it. We didn't shoot in Egypt, but they put a lot of effort and money into turning any place we shot into Egypt, and no one would see the show and think this is not Egypt today.
That I noticed immediately that is different about working for Marvel. I mean, it's common in independent film, but very uncommon when there's a lot of money at play, which is that they love actors. There's a tremendous support for what actors do. They've had real success with actors in the past, and I think they've had it by giving them freedom. I was really impressed and surprised at what a long leash we had. You know, we had to work inside this world that they've built, but inside that world, it was going to be as good as you could imagine.
I think what was most exciting about taking on Stephen Grant and Mark Spector, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, was that there was an ability to use this, you know, superhero genre and Egyptian iconography, superpowers, all this kind of stuff that's exciting and super entertaining, and use those things to tell a very internal story, this very, you know, deeply psychological, emotional story of this person uncovering the trauma that they lived through and finding a way to heal. I think the most challenging part of that was the technical part of acting with myself, because you know, something that an actor looks forward to generally is being able to be surprised in the moment and not knowing what the other actor is going to do. But not only did I know what the other actor was going to do, I had to plan very, very clearly what I was going to do and figure that out and map out, you know, figure out which character I wanted to play first and the blocking. And I had my brother there to read off of, and he's a really good actor, and so that was helpful. But it was the math around how to film those scenes was technically daunting. Goal was certainly to depict the experience of living with dissociative identity disorder in an authentic way, in a respectful way, and to really make that the center of the whole series.
Well, like a lot of cult leaders, you know, megalomaniacs, whatever, I think his motivation is at first entirely altruistic and idealistic. I think he genuinely believes that the world will be better because of his actions, and he justifies any ends for any means to his end, and that's where madness lies.
Parts of Layla that I admire are how resilient she is, and how if she knows she needs to do something, she just goes after it. There isn't like all this like thinking and uncertainty, and that's something that I hope to take more from her. And then the places that we are quite similar, we're both vulnerable and passionate people who fight for the people, I want to say.
You know what? Our antagonist is Ethan Hawke, who plays Arthur Harrow. And the wonderful thing about Ethan Hawke, and you know, I've heard him tell various stories about what he brought to the character and his particular point of view. But one thing that I thought was extremely interesting in his answer is, you know, he was always talking about, I can make a case that Arthur Harrow is the protagonist of this series. I can also make a case that he's the that he's the antagonist of this series. And that side of the line that you never know where Arthur Harrow is walking on, I think is what kept the audiences always guessing with what he was, you know, bringing to the table as he confronted Mark Spector. And so that rich character that you never quite know who you're dealing with, I think is what makes this series interesting. You've got two actors at the top of their games playing very complex characters that could tilt one way or the other at any moment. And that's why we have a very complex, intriguing series. You know, when we started looking at who should direct Moon Knight, we also knew enough of our story by that point that we knew it was going to be very Egypt-centric. And, you know, one of the things that I think is one of the great threads, one of the great aspects of many of the Marvel Cinematic Universe offerings is authenticity. So we started looking at who are those Egyptian filmmakers out there working today. And the top of that list became Mohammed Diab. Then Muhammad came in and did a roughly 200-page pitch with his wife, Sarah. It blew us away. And we knew from that day forward that we had our lead director in Muhammad. Then you started looking at the other episodes and what those directors could be bringing to the table. And the other particular episodes that we were looking at, a lot of things went bump in the night in those episodes. And we started looking at Benson and Moorhead's work, totally mesmerized by their work, not only as a character study, but also what they are able to bring to the table with the camera and that tension and that spookier aspect. And they came in, talked about the characters that they wanted to explore, the aspect of the scripts that they were wanting to explore, and very similar to Muhammad, they just knocked it out of the park, and we knew we had our other directing team on the spot.
Yes, so my experience with Mohammed Diab and Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, it was just a real collaborative team. Something we would do is every Sunday while we were even shooting, we would all have brunch together with the actors, with the writers, our wonderful producer, Grant Curtis, and we would talk through the episodes, we would talk through the scenes, we'd brainstorm, we'd all just get on the same page creatively of what is this story that we're telling. It was really the collective imagination. And so it just felt like such a strong team.
You know, our main Egyptian god, as you know from the IP, is Khonshu. And historically, he's the Egyptian god of the moon, and he is supposed to protect the travelers of the night. Over the years, he's taken on the additional moniker of being the god of vengeance, which he bestowed upon himself. That was not what any of the other Egyptian gods bestowed upon him. So Khonshu plays a very central aspect to Mark Spector's life. You know, Mark Spector is his earthly avatar, and he is supposed to do Khonshu's bidding. So by far, at the first and foremost of the Egyptian god pantheon in this show is Khonshu, and all of the dealings he has with Mark Spector, sometimes good and sometimes not so good.
The thing with the production value, particularly the production design that Stefania, I mean, those sets were just astounding. And the same thing with the craftsmanship of the wardrobe and all of the creatures. I mean, every aspect of it was just so astounding. And for me, what it was inspiration. It was inspiring for me to see people putting all of their skill and passion into creating something that had meaning. And so for me, it just inspired me to want to do my best and bring my best.
Was extremely working with Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke was extremely intimidating at first. They've had so much experience, and I really wanted to do the role justice. So I was scared at first, but then they were really good at empowering me and not only pushing me to take space, but I was able to watch them and see how they did it. And so they ended up being these teachers for me on this project. Detailed sets were like a luxury as an actor, and informed my acting because I was able to just work off all these elements that I wouldn't have been able to imagine had they not been there. So that's a gift. And also it's like a testament to to our set designer, Stefania, and how much love she puts into her work, and it, you know, gives us that permission to want to put just as much work. Working with the directors was so fun. I've never worked, well, I've worked on a project with like different directors, but this felt different. This was like, we had all sat together to go over each episode. Like each episode got 6 hours, and we would sit together at a round table and just go through the whole structure just to make sure we were all on the same page. And it felt like we were kind of one mind moving through it. And what I loved about Mohammed Diab is he has this kind of like flowy way of doing things, and these ideas come to him and in the spur of the moment, and he like throw them on you, and it's scary, but then it's fun. And then Aaron and Justin are a bit more technical, and I'll always remember there are a few moments they'd come to me and be like, can you like experience what you're experiencing more on like this word or this line? And I'm like, okay, you know, I'll try anything. And then it would actually change the whole chemistry of the scene. And it really freed me up as an actor to know I can fully trust them, all of them.
In my mind, I really wanted the costume to remind you of a monk. I saw him as a true spiritual practitioner. He is dedicated to this crocodile goddess. He is serious in his commitment to her, the way that, you might imagine the follower of any major of religions, a monk at the highest order, full of all the strange secrets that those spiritualists have and secret communions with the divine, at least that he believes he has. And I think that's what I just wanted from the hair and the whole costumes, just to some kind of otherworldly monk. Listen, here's the truth, is that when you have to walk inside the tomb of Alexander the Great, and it looks like the tomb of Alexander the Great. I mean, people should pay money to go to these sets. These sets are better than any museum I've ever been to. They went through such lengths to copy real tombs and to have the walls hand painted and have the color blue be exactly right. These people it was unbelievable to watch them work. And I always felt like if you can't act on that set, then you can't act. Well, every project is only as good as its collaborators. And we were all really simply on Team Moon Knight. That was kind of wonderful about it. There was a certain round table aspect to this, meaning everybody's voice was heard, and it was a best idea wins kind of thing. Oscar was really passionate. We had some really brilliant people from Marvel writing this. We had these wonderful directors, but we knew we were sailing uncharted water and we needed each other's help. And so we tried to make it as good as we possibly could.
Well, the first part I can answer, from, when we were looking at what are the aspects of Moon Knight that we wanted to bring to the table to launch this character. One thing that we were looking at very early on, and our head writer, Jeremy Slater, we'd been in the writer's room for a couple of weeks, and we had a lot of stories and storylines that were really exciting us, but we hadn't quite found it yet. And around that same time, I bumped into Kevin in the Marvel kitchen, and he was asking me how it was going, and what we were dealing with and the different aspects and different storylines we were coming up with. And he loved what he was hearing. But he also said, he said, I vividly remember being in Brooklyn as a kid and my parents putting me on a train to Manhattan and standing in line that wrapped around the block to wait and get into the latest Egyptian art exhibit that was traveling through the country. And he said, if we can pull that excitement that he felt on that day, the Egyptology aspect of it all, the art and the architecture that we still can't figure out how they did it to this day, but it absolutely mesmerizes us and intrigues us. If we can infuse that into an Indiana Jones-esque global adventure, he said, then we've got a series. And that was really what took off and lit our fires from that day forward. And that's really how the series came about that you'll see starting March 30th. We shot in Budapest for the vast majority of this series. We did shoot in London. We shot in Jordan, in Wadi Rum Desert, and Aqaba Desert. We also shot in Slovenia. And really what it took to make all this globetrotting adventure in one central location was a production designer at the top of his or her game. And for us, that was Stefania Sella. She came in and absolutely made so many different worlds and painted on so many different canvases that is through Mohammed, Benson and Moorhead, and Stefania's vision that we were able to tell a global scale while centrally located mostly in Budapest.
The thing that was probably most challenging about taking on Moon Knight is that it's a character that has so many decades of being defined by being an outsider, and people who very much identify with them and consider them big fans, also considering themselves maybe outsiders of sorts. That there's a reason why you pick that guy out of the whole pantheon of Marvel characters.
Yeah, Grant would say if there's 100, Marvel superheroes that people know, he's like number 75, something like that.
Yeah. But when you love him, you love him so deeply, and you want the due respect to be paid to this character and in them coming to life, and so it does feel like a big responsibility bringing him into his first live action thing. This character that very rightfully so has a passionate following.
Yeah, but also I just kind of you gave me a good idea. Is also, I actually was worried that we wouldn't be able to make it weird enough or bold enough. And luckily they only Marvel and all the performers and everything only ever pushed us to go further. But I think that was probably the biggest challenge was, is it strange enough? Is it fresh enough? Is it new?
In the 5 independent films we've done prior, we've worked with a lot of actors through the course of that. And oddly, it's never more exciting to work with someone who you might define as a celebrity versus working with literally we've found cast in skate parks in Los Angeles, working with a skater kid versus working with someone, again, you might define as a celebrity. It's not that there's more excitement to it, but there is something extremely special to make something with someone who you're so aware of their prior work. You're so aware, you're so educated on their authorship of whether it be a character you love, a book you love, a movie, a screenplay you love, and to be able to collaborate with people on that level and realize that you two click together.
Yeah,
that's very special. That is a very special
lucky,
thing. Yeah. That is the excitement of working with people like Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac.
Also, I think working with people like Oscar, Ethan, and May, I think I learned more than I ever expected to as a director, but also as a human and as a performer. These are all a bunch of very good people. And so, we were all living together in the same city, all away from home. And we became friends and learned so much about the craft, but also just about how to be. And that's something we'll take with us forever. Working with Marvel is not only what you think it is, it's better. And I'm there's nobody off camera holding a gun to make me say that. It is genuinely one of the best collaborative experiences of our entire lives, because they just absolutely love filmmaking. They love great characters. They love being weird and funny and strange, and all you really ever need to do is surprise them, and they'll back you up all the way. Is that right?
Yeah.
Not is that right? Is that expressing the full? Yeah.
You know what? This project did make us feel like we added to our director box of tricks for sure. But then it should also be said that literally every single project you do is so wildly different that you get a new box of tricks every time. The fortunate and unfortunate thing is you'll probably never open that box again. Because then you're on to the next thing, and everything is so wildly different. And that's really, I guess, the appeal of this career in a lot of ways.
What's fun is on our indie films, we normally shoot them ourselves, but we got to work with the cinematographer named Andrew Palermo. And he's responsible for The Green Knight, which is one of the most beautiful films ever shot. And watching him work, we definitely have a lot of things that we're going to steal from what he does and incorporate it into our own work. Hopefully we can just work with Andrew forever. But if we can't, we're going to take all his good ideas and pretend they were ours.
I'm always coming from a place, I usually don't build sets. I always like to shoot on real locations. Working on this project was very challenging for me. Picking Stefania Sella, the production designer, was a bless. Having someone as energetic and a genius like her, I challenge her every day. I know how to every day tell her, always show her my fear of Egypt not being Egypt. I annoyed her, but she did a great job. When you see the Egyptian statues and the museum, building Egypt in Hungary. She did such an amazing job. I'm so proud of everything that she has done, and I wish that I can work with her again, because she's an absolute genius. I would say the same thing about Megan, costume designer, because there was a lot of challenges. Lots of times when you see in Arab worlds, I know it all feels the same to someone from the West, but it's not. Even putting the veil, if you put it differently, you're from Syria. Putting differently, you're from Morocco. Put it differently, you're from Egypt. And each one of them is completely different culture. So Megan, Stefania, all my team, I don't want to forget anyone. Greg, the cinematographer, anyone who's saying that the show looks different, it's because of those great people. One of the things that really drew me to the show was portraying DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, previously known as multiple personality disorder. And I never get involved in a project unless I find the core, that the anchor that makes me as a human being want to tell that story. So I can stay with that project for 2 or 3 years of my life, give everything, sacrifice family time, sacrifice everything in my life. Usually in my films, they're about intimate stuff that happened to me or something that I'm really attached to. So I had to find that in Moon Knight, and DID was the thing. Shedding some light on the people who live the life who have DID, seeing life through the disoriented as they live it. And that was a challenge as a director too. Putting in mind, even though Marvel provided us with the greatest advisors and we tried as much as we can to handle it with as much respect as we can, this is not an accurate depiction. This is in a fantastical world, there's supernatural elements to it. But I would say I learned through this journey a lot about DID. And I think the audience are gonna learn just like me, and I'm really proud of that. And by the end of the show, people are gonna understand, like, it's not just like as I thought before getting into the show that someone with DID would definitely have a hard life, but those blackouts and you can go on with your life. But no, even like the first episode, there's a scene when the Stephen is dating, and even the date has to go wrong because it's hard to sustain a life when you have DID. It's not easy. I was lucky that the 3 main actors in the show, Oscar Isaac, Ethan Hawke, and Calamawy, are the people that usually wouldn't be associated with a project like this. In a way, just like me. So in a way, we were making our own independent movie. And the 3 of them are not here. Oscar just came from huge films, Star Wars, Dune, and X-Men. And Ethan, 35 years in the business, this is his first superhero film. He wanted to do something special. He wanted to prove that he's not here, not just because it's time. And definitely my presenting Egypt or the Egyptian character was something very important for her. So each one of them brought something to the table. They weren't just actors or someone who wanted figurines for them or being part of the Marvel universe. No. They were intellectual people. The story developed because of them. We had table reads. Each one of them was his character's best lawyer. And they were every day on the shoot, each one of them throws ideas and questions everything. And I think that's part of why we had actually not one. It's the least amount of additional photography in the history of Marvel, which is 4 days. I think because we tried our best and it worked to develop the show even before the end. Usually Marvel never lets the show, I don't think they try. They always try their best to make every show the best. So whatever the show needs, even if it's 100 days of additional photography, they're gonna give it to them. So I'm proud that we only had 4, and I think because Marvel allowed us to develop as much as it's needed, and with those beautiful intellectual people, with the great writers, and with Sarah, my wife, who's a producer on the show, on board, that table really elevated the show.
Viewers should expect to go on an incredibly wild ride. It is an adventure story. It's a psychological thriller. There's elements of real horror, and at the core of it is this real, deeply felt emotional journey of what it is to survive abuse and trauma and to heal from it.
Special about Moon Knight, to me anyway, is that you've got a story of a broken person, and that this superhero's journey is actually about him learning to accept all the different aspects of himself. And once he does that, he becomes really powerful. And you know, if you're at war with yourself, you're broken and you can't do anything. But if you can harness and love all the different aspects of yourself, as the Moon Knight does, then look out. If I had to describe Moon Knight in one word, it would be Moon Knight, because that tells you everything you need to know.
Viewers can expect, when watching Moon Knight, I want to say unpredictable show. I found I find every episode offers something different, keeps you on your toes. It's a spectacle, but also if you want to meet it at the level of like the mental illness and the condition that it's discussing and bringing to light, that's also a really deep way. I would say watch it a couple times, like enjoy it, enjoy the superhero, supernatural aspect of it, and then really go in and watch it from that perspective of mental health, because I feel like we all put so much of our hearts into it, into representing it in a way, or kind of giving it a stage in a way that's keeping in mind it's fiction, but like a sensitive way that can give you a little glimpse and hopefully invite more people to address mental health and how we can support people experiencing any struggle. This is hard. If I could describe Moon Knight in one word, I feel like tomorrow I'm definitely going to think of like 50 other words I could have said. But I want to say it's very like, it's really like mystical in a way. And that might not be the thing that like stands out, but it involves so much fine detail and like so much beyond what's being shown. Yeah, I don't know, it just came to me.
Audiences can expect the unexpected from Moon Knight. And I think that's really a testament to Moon Knight as he's appeared on the pages over the years. It's what invigorates me to this day. As I continue to read the Moon Knight new comics that are coming out, I keep on flipping pages, and every time I think I've got it figured out, I flip the page and it totally blows my mind. And I think that's what our series does as well. You're never quite comfortable in our series. You're enjoying it, but you never know exactly what's going to happen next. And I think that's what they can expect. Be ready for a thrill ride that you don't know what's around every corner, and that's a good thing. Complex. And the reason why that is, Marvel's movies are so big and there's so much spectacle. But at its core, what I think people forget a lot is they're really character studies that are studying complex individuals. And I think that's why that word for me sticks out. Mark Spector is a complex guy. We delve into all those complexities in that character study led by Oscar Isaac. I think that's what makes this series intriguing. And I think that's what is going to make people continue to want to turn the page on our series, just like you turn the pages on the comic book pages to see what's next.
When people watch Moon Knight, what we hope people experience is they feel like they're watching people they recognize in this extraordinary situation. And that not only do they go on the journey of feeling hurt with them, feeling pain, laughing with them, all these things, that they see in these characters some part of themselves and people they know.
So much of the whole show comes from the experience of Oscar Isaac's characters. It's very much right over his shoulder. We got closer with our lens than we ever got before. And we think that if people then are able to vicariously empathize with actually all of the characters, with May and Ethan and Oscar's characters, they'll just be like so along for the ride that when the credits roll, they'll kind of hopefully forget they were in reality for a moment.
If I had to describe Moon Knight in one word, it would be the highest compliment that we give: weird. Genuinely. I mean, I guess for us, like, weird just means you're an individual and you have your own set of emotional pain and successes and your own brand of humor and all of these things. And with that, to be weird is to be the greatest thing you can be.
Best experience of my life, for sure, for me. And I would tell you that the reason I made Moon Knight was I identified with Stephen and Mark. I myself, I think in every human being, we have two things. We have the persona, the mask that we're showing people, and the real you inside of you. And your journey through life is to try to make those two people live together. And that's exactly Mark and Steven's journey. And that's exactly what they're learning. And that's exactly anyone who's watching the show should learn from the show.